3 seasons. That's how long it took Silo to answer one question. Why does anyone live underground in the first place? We had guesses. A war. A plague. A climate collapse. Nobody stopped in time. Every theory pointed at something big, something loud, something you'd see coming from miles away. Episode 8 throws that assumption out. The thing that ended the world above ground wasn't a mushroom cloud. It was something you couldn't see at all. Gray goo. Nanotechnology. And once you understand what that actually means, the entire Silo project stops looking like a rescue plan and starts looking like something else entirely. Stick around, because by the end of this video the silos are going to look a lot less like a shelter, and a lot more like a decision that was made for you, by people who never asked what you wanted. Let's get the facts straight first, because this episode moves fast. The before times timeline finally catches up with the present. Daniel and Helen are brought to Georgia, where they meet Per Stenson and Senator Thurman face to face. And the two men lay out exactly what they've been building in secret. 50 silos. Underground. Designed as a survival network in case civilization collapses. Stenson's justification is nanotechnology. Not nuclear weapons, not disease, not asteroids. Machines too small to see, and too dangerous to stop once they start replicating. The strange cloud that crippled Charlotte's jet back in the season premiere finally gets an explanation. It was a nanoweapon, developed by Iran, deployed against her squadron while she flew a mission she didn't fully understand. Her unit wasn't just unlucky. It was a decoy. While Charlotte's team drew attention, a second operation dug a tunnel underneath the facility to destroy it from below. That single reveal reframes the entire season opener. Charlotte wasn't a soldier caught in a bad situation. She was a piece being moved on a board she couldn't see. By the end of the hour, Charlotte chooses to stay and join the Silo project. Daniel and Helen walk away, at least for now, unconvinced that Stenson's plan is the right one. That's the plot. Now let's talk about what it actually means. Here's something worth knowing before we go further. Gray goo isn't a term the Silo writers invented. It's a real concept from nanotechnology research, and it's been sitting in scientific literature since the 1980s. Engineer K. Eric Drexler popularized the idea in his book on molecular manufacturing. The scenario goes like this. Build a self-replicating machine small enough to operate at the molecular level. Let it lose control of its own replication. And in theory, it could consume raw material indefinitely, turning matter into copies of itself until there's nothing left to consume. The nightmare isn't an explosion. It's an appetite that never stops. Real-world nanotechnology researchers have spent decades arguing about how realistic that scenario actually is. Most consider true runaway gray goo extremely unlikely with current technology because self-replicating machines at that scale face enormous energy and material constraints. But the underlying anxiety behind the idea never fully went away because the broader category it points to is very real. Weaponized nanotechnology, including engineered particles designed to disable electronics, disrupt biological systems, or evade detection, is an active area of military research interest in multiple countries. So when Silo borrows this concept, it isn't reaching for pure science fiction. It's reaching for a real, decades-old fear inside the scientific community and repackaging it as the thing that ends its fictional world. That's a smart writing choice because it means the threat in the show doesn't feel invented. It feels like something that could plausibly sit 1 or 2 steps ahead of where we actually are right now. Now here's where the episode gets genuinely uncomfortable, and I don't think that discomfort is an accident. The man explaining humanity's greatest threat is a billionaire with his own tech empire, backed by a powerful senator, operating almost entirely outside public oversight. Several critics covering this episode have pointed out how deliberately the show frames Stenson. The parallels to real modern tech billionaires aren't subtle. A wealthy founder positioning himself as humanity's last line of defense, quietly building infrastructure that ordinary people have no say in, while insisting he alone understands the scale of the danger. That's not a new archetype. It echoes something we've already seen play out in reality. Private billionaires building doomsday shelters. Tech founders funding underground bunkers in New Zealand. Real seed vaults, like the one buried in the Norwegian permafrost, built specifically to survive a catastrophe most of us will never be consulted about. Silo isn't inventing the idea that the ultra-wealthy might quietly prepare for collapse while the public stays in the dark. It's dramatizing something that already has real-world precedent. And that's exactly why Stenson's explanation should make you suspicious, not because it's necessarily false, but because of who's telling it, and who gets to decide what everyone else is told. That let's sit with the logic for a second, because on the surface, Stenson's plan sounds almost noble. The world is ending. Someone has to preserve the species, build shelters, wait it out, repopulate later. But a rescue plan and a control system are not the same thing. And Silo has spent 3 seasons showing us that the difference matters enormously. If the goal really was just survival, the residents inside the silos wouldn't need their history erased. They wouldn't need their memories suppressed. They wouldn't need a system that punishes curiosity as if asking questions were the real threat, more dangerous than the outside world itself. Preserving a species is one goal. Preserving obedience is a completely different one. And once you strip away Stenson's language about saving humanity, what you're left with is a system built to decide who survives, what they're allowed to know, and how long they stay convinced that the surface is unlivable. That's not preservation. That's curation. If you want the cleanest piece of evidence that something darker sits underneath this rescue story, look at Safeguard. This season has already shown us how far that system reaches. Not just a security measure, but a mechanism capable of wiping out an entire silo population if the people running things decide it's necessary. And recent episodes have added something even colder to that picture. A backup protocol designed to eliminate anyone who manages to escape, even if the primary system fails. Sit with that for a second. A project built, according to its own architects, to save the species comes with a built-in method for erasing thousands of the very people it claims to be protecting. You can rationalize that as a last resort. Maybe a silo gets compromised. Maybe a population turns dangerous. Maybe, in an extreme scenario, containment becomes necessary to protect everyone else. But even the most generous interpretation tells you something important. The people who built this system were never planning purely for survival. They were planning for control, with survival as the framing they used to justify it. A rescue plan doesn't need a kill switch pointed at the people it rescued. A control system does that. Here's the part that I think a lot of recaps are going to skip past, because it's easier to talk about plot than to sit with the actual question the show is putting in front of you. Stenson might be completely honest about the threat. Nanotechnology might genuinely have been spiraling out of control. Iran might really have built a weapon capable of mass devastation. None of that has to be a lie for his solution to still be dangerous. That's the uncomfortable trick Silo is pulling off. It's not building a villain who lies about the apocalypse. It's building a man who might be entirely truthful about the danger and still ends up designing something closer to a cage than a shelter, because he never once considers that the people he's saving might deserve a say in how they're saved. Power doesn't usually announce itself as tyranny. It usually announces itself as protection. Someone decides the public can't be trusted with the truth, and from there it's a short walk to deciding the public can't be trusted with freedom either. That's the real horror sitting underneath Episode 8. Not the nanotechnology. The men in the room deciding what everyone else gets to know about IT.S. Oh, or does this leave us heading into the final stretch of the season? We now know what supposedly destroyed the surface. We know why Stenson believed underground survival was necessary. What we still don't know is who ultimately decided the rules the silos would live under, and whether freedom was ever actually part of the plan, or just a story told to keep people compliant while they waited for a return that was never coming. That question matters more than the nanotechnology reveal itself, because it reframes everything Juliet has been fighting against. She isn't just trying to escape a bunker. If the theories building around this season hold up, she may be fighting against a system designed generations ago to be permanent, dressed up as temporary. And if that's true, the biggest twist left in this show isn't going to be about what ended the world. It's going to be about who decided what the new one should look like, and why they never planned on letting anyone vote on it. That's my breakdown of Episode 8, and honestly, this might be the most important hour of Silo so far, because it finally hands us motive instead of mystery. If you've got your own theory about what Safeguard is really protecting, or who you think is really pulling the strings behind Stenson, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want breakdowns like this the moment new episodes drop, subscribe, because the final stretch of this season is about to get a lot more interesting. See you in the next one.